G'day everyone, I am AzureBlaze, and for the unaware, the Tales of, or Tales franchise, is a long-running series of Japanese action RPGs. Recently, I finished the main story of the first game I have played in the franchise, that being Tales of Vesperia. However, I finished it with a catch. During the entire runtime of the game, I was the second player. This video aims to allow me to discuss my experience and thoughts about the game. Similar to a review in a sense, however it shall all be done through the guise of the second player. Therefore, I present my first Tales game whilst being second player.
By my honor as a knight!
Despite Vesperia being both the first Tales game I have played and subsequently completed, I have a brief history with the series before beginning it. This history comes in the form of mainly Arise, Tales of Arise. Basically, I had bought Tales of Arise for the Xbox long before I bought Vesperia, and I did intend on getting around to playing it at one point. I mainly bought it because of some of the similarities it has to Scarlet Nexus, and I'm a big fan of Scarlet Nexus. Anyone who's watched this channel for a while would know. And yeah, I sort of bought it like going, oh, okay, it's got some similarities in the gameplay and all that sort of thing, I will buy that. However, my sister went and played it before I did, and I was sort of there while she was playing it. However, I never had much to do it while she was playing it. I was busy with other games at the time, and she sort of got through that. She 100%ed it, like fully got all the achievements and everything like that on the Xbox, which is pretty neat. However, I do intend to go play Arise at one point. I simply have I've seen enough of it at the moment so where I don't need to go into it straight away. Coming back from that, however, I brought Vesperia for her to play after Arise because she really liked Arise, and we then found out that I think she found out from some sort of post somewhere that most of the games before Arise had a co-op mode. And I was like, okay, I want to play the Tales games anyway. We may as well play it in co-op. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. we'll play it in co-op. And yeah, that's sort of how it's sort of been, I guess. She's generally more of an RPG person than myself. I do like action RPGs. However, that's because of the action side of the action RPG. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of playing with items all the time and doing all the different stats stuff and all the different types of weapon stats and things and ups and downs, and it's generally out of what I like to tend to do. And I understand that the Tales series has a lot of that in it, and I will be getting into that if I go play more of the games. However, like, I think the action stuff comes in as strong as it does that I can do that. Basically, anyway, back to the main story. Yeah, we started playing Vesperia, and we have been playing it for well over 120 hours now, I think. We have finished the main story. We've gotten a fair amount of things. We've been going back and trying to get a lot of the achievements and hidden achievements. We plan on starting a new game plus once we've sort of done everything on the save that we can, and getting everything to the point of 100%, hopefully. It is now my sister's goal to 100% all the Tales games, which is I think that's great. Anyway, yeah, that's my history with the series sort of at the moment. Yeah, I think the first thing I sort of want to say before I move on to the next section of the video is Vesperia, it was very different to what I was expecting, especially coming off what I saw in Arise. However, after I was looking things up, I sort of found that I think the Tales series, I do kind of like the look of the Tales series, and I do want to get into extra things in the Tales series. However, I sort of want to preface that this version of Vesperia is not the original Xbox 360 version. It is the definitive edition, and we have it on Xbox One. Yeah, however, moving on to the story.
Together now!
The story follows one Yuri Lowell and his dog Rapide, and Princess Estelle, and a lot of cast of characters that you get to join the party on the way through. Sort of before I go anywhere, the two characters. There was two characters that were added. Well, I say added. One was added and one was half added to the definitive version of the game back on the PS3 when it originally came out, I believe. Flynn, who is technically, I guess he's a supporting character, or he has a very big presence in the game. He was always sort of there, by what I understand, in the original. However, he's now fully playable, and that is the character I used as second player whenever I could. if he wasn't there, I would tend to be Rapide generally. However, yeah, no, it's Flynn and then Paddy, who was completely added in, by what I understand, which, yeah, I think very interesting that they went and added like a whole new character in. However, by what I understand, my sister was saying when she was looking things up, that people didn't feel like it didn't seem right to have them in there, like their parts almost seemed forced in there and all that sort of thing. And I guess for anyone who's played the original, that might make a lot of sense. However, I personally haven't really felt that at all. I feel like Paddy a little bit more, maybe, yes, because a lot of her story segments take place almost separately from the sort of like the main story and everything like that. A lot of her character build up, while they've added a lot of things into the main story for it, a lot of it comes from sort of like accidental side missions and all that sort of thing. Like that's sort of where all the Paddy's things come in. Where Flynn, being a character in the original game, he sort of had all the development there. However, he's now playable, and I guess I don't know. I always found it quite enjoyable to play as Flynn. I actually got the moveset I prefer the most out of probably any of the characters, personally. Yeah, I guess I should probably go over the characters first with the story stuff. Yeah, there's Yuri Lowell. He is a brash youngster, I should say. I don't know, he's about my age, I think. Who left the Knights because he doesn't like the types of ruling and all that sort of thing. That's, yeah. Anyway, he has his best buddy Rapide and his other best buddy Flynn. His best buddy Rapide is a doggo with one eye sadly missing and scarred. Poor thing. He holds a pipe in his mouth at all times, and he is amazing. He has some of the funniest stuff, and yeah, a lot of his story specifically revolves around this other dog that he's sort of like in war of territory for. Then we got Flynn. He is in the Knights. He was a friend of Yuri for most of his life. He's very by the books compared to Yuri's brashness, I guess. They're very opposites. However, like, they are old childhood friends. They're always getting into a scuffle with each other type thing. However, and like, one of them is sort of like, they sort of fill each other's spots. Like, where one of them sort of fails, the other can do something, and da-da-da-da-da, that type of thing. I guess Estelle, the princess, she was sort of always like brought up in her castle, I guess. Like, she was never really let outside that much. When Yuri was trying to escape from prison, which is a whole thing at the start of the game, Estelle tagged along, basically. And yeah, they sort of left and went on a journey. And then there's Carol, who you meet in the woods. He is a little young guy who he was part of a specific guild and all that sort of thing that never really accepted him, and he ends up starting his own guild, of which Yuri is a big part of, Judith is a part of, and all that sort of thing. And speaking of Judith is a Critian, as they're called, the race in the games, and she wears questionable clothing. Personally, our gameplay of it, we had changed her clothing to be a little bit less questionable, especially for battle. However, yeah, she is pretty neat as a character, otherwise, I guess. She's very sarcastic a lot of the time, all that sort of thing, and I feel like she gets along with Yuri a lot better than most people. Then there's Raven, who is sort of like the shady guy who's always spying on different sides and all that sort of thing, and then he ends up being one thing and not another thing, and another thing and not another thing. He's very all over the place as a character. And Paddy, I think that's all that's left. Have I gone for everyone? Yuri, Rapide, Flynn, still, I haven't gone through Rita yet. Rita is a tsundere to a T, basically. She's a young girl who is a mage and has, I say young girl, she's like sort of in the middle of the age brackets out of everyone. Yeah, she's a mage. She's very hot-headed, I guess, and she does not, she's not happy with most things, I guess. And then Paddy. Paddy is a little girl who is a pirate. Turns out she may not have been a little girl. She may have been like a big pirate captain who, when she got rejuvenated or something, she became a little girl. It's a whole other thing, and we're very confused by it. That's the characters though. And I guess the main thing with the story is the story can be a little bit confusing. Basically, it starts off with Yuri and all that. They're trying to stop a very specific lot of people who aren't very nice. Like that's a lot of the first part of the story. And then the second act has the head of the knights. He sort of does some bad things, and then they have to go stop him from doing that before he brings along like a huge big evil. And he does succeed in doing that, which sets up the third act. However, that guy is then gone. The third act then covers the characters setting out to sort of specifically make a way to take down this big monster thing and battle another guy who doesn't like humans very much right before the end, before they take out the big old monster thing. That's a very brief abridged version of the story. And to be honest, most of the character doesn't come from the story itself, rather the group of characters who are all they work very well together, I think, which is a little bit of criticism I've heard from Arise, but what I understand, I think, I might be wrong, is that the characters they're not people's favorite characters, I guess, from the Tales series, where in Vesperia, they all get along really well and all that sort of thing. Yeah, no, it's the characters are sort of what makes the story. Like, they each have very differing views on how things around them should be. And it is very interesting to see them sort of sometimes clash, sometimes talk about it, all that sort of thing. And I think it's really what drives the story towards the ending point. Not to mention the story itself is quite solid, like as a base. How there's a lot of technical words and things that you have to remember a lot of the time, like big words like Entelikeia, Artiphagos, and all that sort of thing. Like, there's a lot of made-up words that you end up having to remember, and it does get a little bit confusing around that. However, once people remember it, yeah, no, it's pretty good. Overall, though, yes, I do quite enjoy the story. Overall, I think it's generally really good, and I really like how the characters interact with each other, despite not liking all of the characters. I definitely like the story and how it has gone, and all the side stuff with Patty and all that sort of thing as well. I think has been pretty interesting, nonetheless, even though it is a little bit confusing. That is the story. I guess the next thing to move on to would be the gameplay.
Now that's what I wanted to hear.
For the gameplay, I think I wasn't expecting this type of gameplay specifically when I went into it. I knew it was an action RPG, and I guess because of my more modern action RPG senses, tastes that I've been getting into and playing a lot of lately, I was sort of expecting a little bit more of that. And it is very, very different. However, you can sort of see it as a base for modern action RPG gameplay, in the sense that the characters, whilst with most modern ones, you run around, you have 2 buttons for attacking specific things, like a heavy attack, short attack, you may have more buttons for magic and all that sort of thing. You do different combos and all that sort of thing, and it sort of all works out and all that sort of thing. The gameplay in Vesperia is a little bit different, however somewhat the same. You have one button to do a normal attack, and then one button to do an arts attack. And then, you can flick the stick anyway and do arts attacks the right stick, and then you can flick the stick whilst holding down X to do specific things, and then you can hold a different button and do more different things, and then another button and do more different things. There's a lot of moves that you can do, and sort of it needs to learn to, I guess, combat specific different things. You don't really need to learn them, I guess. You could go through pressing one button the whole time if you really wanted to. However, it's a lot more interesting, I guess, when you do learn all those different moves. And if we go back to the characters for a second, each character has their own different moveset. I guess probably the closest to compare to each other would be Flynn's and Yuri's, because they're both swords people, basically. Yuri is a swords person, Flynn is a swords person, however he tends to use a little bit more magic as well. Estelle is a healer, usually, most of the time. She has got a sword and shield if she needs it type thing for normal attacks. Rita is overpowered. we find her quite overpowered. She can do lots of area of effect damage attacks and lots of smaller attacks as well. The majority magic, and you do have to watch her TP a little bit, because she runs out of TP, which is I should probably expand on what TP is. You have your HP and your TP. Your TP as well as you do use your arts or magic, basically. Yeah, she uses a lot of TP up really quickly. And then Rapide, he uses like a little blade that he has in his mouth to battle with, which is interesting. Oh, that's the other thing. Rita uses a chain, which is as well interesting, I guess. Judith tends to use a lance or spear, Carol an axe, Raven a bow, and Patty a flintlock, I think, off memory. I don't know. We haven't had Patty out that much. Yeah, and that's sort of like, they all use different things and they all have different moves to go with it. Some people do share moves with other people, however, it is generally not like any sort of like special big move or anything like that. Some people have variations of someone else's move. There's a lot of moves that you can apply, and a lot that you won't be using, and a lot that you will be using. And it all sort of works in tandem in this. When you go to battle an enemy, you get stuck basically in a circle, and you can only move left and right in the plane that your character is looking in. It's interesting altogether. And if you want to move freely around this circle, you can hold a button and move freely around the circle. However, I'm pretty sure you can't attack while you're doing that. I might be wrong. However, yeah, you can wander around by freely if you wanted to. However, you have to hold a button while doing it. Otherwise, you're stuck on this 2D plane, facing generally, depending on how you're playing, you can play as a manual, semi-auto, or fully automatic and have the character do whatever they want themselves. Semi-auto allows you to point, it'll keep your character on the target, however you do all the moves yourself and you can do all the running around yourself if you want to, type thing. However, or you can press a move and your character will go towards it. Semi-auto is what I personally played on, and then there's manual, which is what my sister played on, where you control everything. The reason I tended to play on semi-auto is I always had a lot of trouble where I thought I was facing the right way, and then all of a sudden my character was facing the wrong way and doing an attack and using up TP and all that sort of thing. And at a certain stage I got really frustrated and I went back to semi-auto and I sort of stayed there for the entire game. However, yeah, this all sort of works in tandem in this circle that you can't move out of type thing. You can lock onto enemies, move between them and all that sort of thing. And yeah, it's very, I guess it's a more basic version of what a typical action RPG would be in its setting. However, there's a lot more moves, I feel, at the very least. In saying that, I haven't played the newer versions of Tales, Rise specifically. I will be getting into that, and I think there are a fair few arts in that as well. However, I have a feeling this game has a little bit more. I might be wrong about that. And yeah, no, that's it's sort of a strange thing. And you can set up a strategy where you place where the characters want to start each time a battle starts. You can only have four characters in a battle at all times. Our general party is Yuri, Flynn, Estelle, and Rita. If Flynn's not there, because a lot of the story takes him away from the group, we tend to use Rapide there instead. And I guess that's probably like the basic combo of people. However, yeah, no, it's been really good to have this sort of like, you have like a lot of choice, however it's in restriction to the gameplay, and I think that works quite well. And it's definitely something I haven't seen before, and it's a lot older of a game. I think I personally prefer more modern action RPG type gameplay, however I can definitely play with this. However, it isn't anything, I guess, spectacular, and it can get very monotonous if you get stuck in a point where you're like having to do a lot of enemies. There's this point we're up to in the game called the Necropolis, which is a lot of rooms one after another, and you're going through, attacking enemies for ages, moving through another one. It sort of gets really boring, especially when you're battling the same enemy all the time. However, generally when you start battling different enemies and playing around with it and all that sort of thing, it's a lot more fun. I personally think it is a good gameplay style for what it is. I'm happy to play some other Tales games with it. However, I would personally prefer the normal gameplay. One more thing I should probably mention about the gameplay. There is a bar on the left hand side of the screen called the overlimit bar. That fills up as you attack enemies. You can do certain things with certain characters, such as taunting to get it to go through quicker, or you can use an item to add to it. Initially you start off with it going to 2 times the bar fills up, however you can then keep upgrading it to go to 4. And this allows you to basically increase the, I guess, the attack rate of TP-based moves, like magic-based moves. One of my favorite things that I tend to do with Flynn is I go into a room, especially in the place that we're in currently. I go into a room, use one, because you can choose how many bars that you want to use. I use one of them, and I keep using this giant laser thing that usually takes forever to build up the energy for, and it does it like almost instantly. I say almost instantly, it takes half a second or to like a second. Yeah, roughly a second to charge up instead, and a second or two maybe. And yeah, it's a fun big thing to use, and I like how that bar allows you to do different things. If you have it on 3, you can use this thing called a Mystic Art. If you have it on 4, you can do different combos to use like a second type of Mystic Art. On pretty much any one of them, after doing a specific attack, you can do what's called like a burst art. There's all sorts of different things. It expands your moveset even more. However, it's generally more of like a brief power-up type thing. And I think it is really fun to sort of manage keeping that to a specific level for a specific type of enemy before, then like making sure you use it all correctly on an enemy and not waste any of the TP, because it does run out fairly quickly. However, for the gameplay, I think that's about it. And yeah, basically, my thoughts on the gameplay are, it's pretty decent. It works well with this type of game. Again, I wouldn't probably have it in more modern games. However, I am happy to keep using it when I go to play Symphonia later down the line. I have a feeling it might be a little bit more limited in Symphonia because it's an early game. And when I go to use it in Tales of Hearts R, I think it has the same one. And I have bought that on my Vita and I'm ready to play it. However, I've got other things to play. Yeah, that's it for the gameplay. I think I shall probably move on to some general other things.
There's no way we're gonna lose.
When speaking about general other things, I mean sort of like typical RPG elements, like side quests and items and all that sort of thing. This game has a myriad of side quests. A lot of side quests. A lot of side things generally to do, and a lot of rewards for those side things. As a lot of them can be pretty fun. Some of them are battling normal monsters, some of them are battling big monsters, some of them are pushing crates through a warehouse, and all of them can be generally quite fun. I think my favorite is probably snowboarding with Rapide, to be honest, which I think it's hilarious. And yeah, generally I think it works quite well. There is a lot of content in this game. Personally, as one who likes to get through a game as quickly as possible, it is a little bit much for me myself. However, having my sister there, who is a very big RPG person, she tends to like that, all that sort of stuff, and she's been very happy with it. And I think this is where my second player stuff tends to come in. When it comes to side quests specifically, is with the second player stuff, it's been really good for me to sort of, I guess, bow out whenever I want. You can switch the character to automatic if you want and let him go type thing. I can hop in and out whenever I want. I can play other games on my Switch or my Vita in there while I'm using one hand on the controller to control the character, because that's all I have to do. I don't have to walk around in the overworld and do the typical, like, go talk to everyone, find specific things and all that sort of thing. My sister handled the majority of that while I basically sat there doing other things while playing it, and I think that was probably the best decision for me. I think I would have been very sort of over it after probably the second act of the game, if not for that, because it's a little bit too long for me. And I do plan on playing, when I play Symphonia, I'm going to play that with my sister. Hopefully that's sort of all similar. I'm dreading Hearts R a little bit, however, I will probably play that my normal way rather than being 100% or anything like that, like sort of getting through the story and all that sort of thing, as I tend to do. That's simply how I like to play games. And I think it has a lot of content, especially for RPG people, and especially this definitive version with all the things that it added. There's a lot of side quests and side characters, with some with voice acting, some without voice acting. There's a fair amount of locations in the game, ranging to snow, desert, grass, crystal place, lava, all that sort of thing. All your atypical biomes and all that sort of thing, I guess. And yeah, it has been really good for all those sort of other things. You've got normal shops and all that sort of thing around that you can buy and synthesize items at. You get loads and loads and loads of different weapons, either from side quests, making them, general story quests and all that sort of thing. There's other little gameplay elements in the overworld where like you can fire at certain things with this special mage ring and it will do different things around the world. There's different chests and such around the world. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I like how much there is. However, again, personally, for me, it's not the biggest thing. Therefore, I think playing a second player has been perfect. Playing a second player has been really good for all this sort of thing, and I've been really enjoying sort of being there along for the ride, however, not quite fully onto it, if that makes sense. And I think I would definitely enjoy it if I were to play it and go straight through the story without like all the side quests and stops and everything like that, even though I probably wouldn't get everything that I needed, and I would probably have to go do some level of grinding, I guess, for levels and all that sort of thing. However, like for the most part, it's been really fun to sort of watch this story unfold from the sideline whilst being able to jump in whenever the action needs to be done. I've been quite enjoying that, and I think that is sort of my experience with it. It's yeah, it's been really good. I do like that. I'm going to continue playing it with my sister until we get to 100%, mainly because at the same time I can sit there and play, I don't know, Tears of the Kingdom. But both at the same time, and then I can jump in when needed, and I can battle some enemies, generally as Flynn, or Pete, I don't know. Anyway, they are my thoughts on Vesperia, I guess, in general, as well as being second player whilst playing Vesperia. Sorry that was a little bit rambly. There wasn't much of a script at all, I guess. Like, I scripted the first bits and that's about it. The gameplay, overlapping it, I've talked about way too much to try and go through and get different pieces of footage for it, especially where we are in the game. Like, we don't want to do much else at the moment, therefore most of the footage is going to be probably of this same area, with me battling enemies and all that sort of thing. Maybe some footage of roaming around the world. Other than that, though, there's probably not going to be that much footage, I guess, difference. Sorry if it looks, yeah, kind of, I guess, unprofessional, I don't know, or like, sort of like I was, yeah, rambling the whole time. However, that tends to be how I like to do things. I get a lot more out of the videos when I do it this way. However, yeah, other than that, I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I shall be back in the next one. Cheers, everyone.